Something happened at Europe's border that almost nobody saw coming. A migration crisis erupted in a tiny Spanish territory in North Africa, and within days, its consequences reached Italy. Tens of thousands of people suddenly moved towards Ceuta, desperately trying to reach Spanish territory. Some entered the sea, others rushed towards the border, and as the number grew, so did the chaos. Spanish authorities were forced to dramatically increase security. But then, Italy made a surprising decision. Rome temporarily brought back checks on certain people arriving from Spain, and that raised an obvious question. Why would Italy tighten controls on people coming from Spain? Because of something happening in Africa? Italy and Spain are both part of the European system, designed to make internal borders almost invisible. So why were they suddenly checking each other's travelers? Was Italy genuinely worried about a new wave of illegal migration? Was this a national security decision, or was something much bigger happening behind the scenes? Because what started at one tiny border in North Africa was quickly turned into a European-wide political problem. And to understand why, we need to go to the place where everything began, Ceuta.
Tens of thousands of migrants have now made it from Morocco into this Spanish sliver of North Africa.
Madrid is deploying military units to its border with Morocco in an effort to restore order.
Ceuta es una ciudad española.
Spain's far-right Vox party called this an invasion.
Look at the map of Europe. Spain is here, Morocco is here, and right between them, sitting on the African coast, is something that looked almost impossible. A small Spanish territory called Ceuta. It is surrounded by Morocco on almost every side. Yet, politically it is Spanish territory. And that makes Ceuta one of the most unusual borders in the world. It is also one of Europe's most sensitive migration points. Because for migrants in North Africa, reaching Ceuta means reaching European soil. And in late July 2026, something extraordinary happened. Thousands began moving towards the territory. Then, thousands became tens of thousands. Videos spread across social media showing people heading towards the border, swimming through the sea, and attempting to enter Ceuta. According to Reuters, more than 72,000 people eventually surged into the enclave. Well, at least 96 people died in the mass crossing and its aftermath. But here's where the story becomes much more complicated. Why did so many people suddenly attempt the crossing? It wasn't simply that everyone spontaneously decided to migrate on the same day. There was another factor, a legal decision. In June, Spain's Supreme Court issued a ruling concerning how authorities could immediately return migrants attempting to reach Ceuta and Melilla. The distinction was important. People intercepted after crossing a physical border barrier could be treated differently from people who reached the territory by sea. That created a potential legal loophole. And according to Spanish border workers interviewed by Reuters, information about that ruling began spreading through social media and criminal networks. The message being circulated was simple. If you could reach Ceuta by swimming, getting immediately pushed back might be much harder. For desperate people looking for a route into Europe, that information could be enough to trigger a mass movement. And that's exactly what happened. By the late July, thousands were gathering around the Moroccan side of the border. Then, the flood began. People entered the water. Some used inflatable tubes. Others tried to cross by land. Spanish authorities rushed additional police and military personnel into Ceuta. Moroccan forces attempted to stop the people from reaching the territory, and the situation rapidly turned deadly. But here's the twist. The crisis was happening in Ceuta, not Rome, not Milan, not Sicily, and not even mainland Spain. So why did Italy suddenly get involved? On July 31st, Italy announced a temporary suspension of the normal Schengen arrangements with Spain. But this wasn't a complete closure of the border. Italian citizens and other European citizens weren't the primary target. Instead, Italy announced a targeted checks on non-European nationals arriving from Spain by air or sea. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said that the measure was necessary to protect national security and prevent possible consequences for Italy. And Italy also coordinated with France to strengthen controls along the Franco-Italian border. But there was an obvious problem. Ceuta isn't part of the Schengen area. Spain itself later emphasized that the Schengen zone had not actually been compromised by Ceuta arrivals. So was Italy really responding to an immediate security threat, or was something else happening? Critics of the Italian government argued that there was a little evidence that migrants arriving in Ceuta were actually planning to travel onwards to Italy. Some accused the government of using the crisis to demonstrate a tougher position on immigration at home. And this is where the story stops being just about migration and becomes a story about European politics. Spain wasn't happy because from Madrid's perspective, Italy had essentially responded to a Spanish migration crisis by imposing restrictions on people coming from Spain. So Spain retaliated. On August 8, Spain began its own temporary checks on travelers arriving from Italy. On the first day alone, Spanish authorities checked 199 people on 12 flights arriving at 6 major airports. And suddenly, two countries belonging to Europe's border-free system were checking each other's travelers: Italy, Spain. And the reason? A migration crisis that had exploded in a tiny Spanish territory in Africa. At first glance, this looks like a simple story about Italy and Spain fighting over immigration. But it's much bigger than that, because the entire idea behind Schengen is that European countries can maintain strong external borders, while allowing much easier movement internally. But what happens when one country believes that another country's border policy creates a security risk for everyone else? Does every country start bringing back its own border controls? Or does Europe maintain one common system? The Ceuta crisis exposed that tension in a dramatic way, and there's another layer to the story. Today, authorities in Spain and Morocco are dealing with renewed security concerns after social media call encouraged another mass crossing attempt. Morocco arrested more than 100 people in one such crackdown on August 14. So the crisis isn't simply disappearing, it has evolved from a border to a migration crisis to a political dispute and finally into a debate about the future of Europe's border. One tiny territory, tens of thousands of migrants, two European governments, and one question that Europe still hasn't fully answered. How do you keep Europe borderless on the inside when countries increasingly want stronger borders on the outside? What's your opinion about all this? Please do let me know on the comment section. And if you found the video helpful, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel.